Imagine back before your earliest memories, before you were given a name that would carry cultural meaning, indicating who you were and even who you would love. Imagine when the doctor spoke your gender, they actually said the wrong thing. It was written on your birth certificate and on the pink or blue balloons used to celebrate your birth. From that moment, with that action, you entered a dystopian world. A world right out of the Twilight Zone where everyone else's understanding of who you were and what you did were different than you did. You understood it. Your parents gave you a name. They picked out clothes. Friends and family gave you toys, and you were bathed in everything our society has assigned to be another gender. That is what it was like for me. I am a transgender woman. Being transgender means that the person the world saw me as at birth is not really who I am. The stories written in the minds of my parents and my family and my friends and everyone who had hopes and dreams about my future were fundamentally different than those that would play out. Everything they would begin investing in those stories would be for naught, and they would be constantly disappointed. When I thought about this talk today, I thought about the parents of trans kids and how courageous they were to listen and believe their children, even in the face of overwhelming pressure from other adults. I thought about the family and friends of trans people who chose love and acceptance, even when that love and acceptance caused dramatic change to their shared lives. To all of these people and others, I sincerely wanted to help them understand. I wanted to validate their trust, love, and acceptance by sharing my story. I don't remember much of my childhood years, but I do remember confusion. Through that fog, though, I vividly remember countless times of being unable to play with the other girls because of some adult's obsession with dividing boys and girls, or because of boy germs, or whatever childhood game was being played. That confusion continued until, like so many of my transgender and non-binary peers, I found myself in books as a way to find some peace and certainty in a world that didn't see me the way I saw myself. Outside of books, I learned the rules taught to me by society. I developed mental algorithms, flowcharts if you will, to govern my interactions because I learned I could not trust my own feelings and intuition. All of those rules worked very well when talking about the weather or in other meaningless conversations, but they fell apart and failed me when conversations grew deeper, denying me access to a close group of friends. For decades, I wondered what it would be like to traverse the world as a woman. To be clear, I had learned I was a boy, and so can't claim the same conviction that many transgender people speak of knowing with certainty since a very young age. I was not the confident young person who could speak about her world with conviction. I was the rule follower who listened to what the world told me and tried hard to follow those rules. I had long wondered about the world experienced by women. I long gravitated to feminine people and made friends with women with whom I conversed more easily and could let down my guard. I decided I needed to know firsthand, and so, in secret, I went out in public presenting feminine. Like many of my transgender peers, I chose a gay bar as a place of relative safety. Despite the discrepancy between how I saw myself and the image that reflected back to me in the mirror, I was welcomed with open arms, and so then that very same evening that I found myself, I found my people who accepted me unconditionally for who I was. Slowly, I began anew the process of puberty. of finding myself amidst the overwhelming messages about gender that infuse our lives. I struggled to rebuild my external and internal persona to match my values, my loves, my desires, but do so without the limits placed on me by that doctor from so many decades before. I remember this time as a constant feeling like I was unraveling. All of the different layers of me were coming apart at the same time. In order to stop hating myself, I had to confront the internalized transphobia and homophobia I had learned through the media's cultural messaging and just by existing. When you tear down the walls of self-hatred, what remains is raw and lost. When you let go of the internalized transphobia and homophobia that was part of your life for so many years, what is left? Who are you? Who do you love? If you want to live your truth, first you have to ask yourself, what is my truth? Who am I? How do I want people to see me? The potential consequences of transition are not lost on transgender people. We know we may lose some or all of the foundations on which our lives and livelihood is based. When people come out, they're often greeted with resistance by those they come out to. This resistance is driven by a lack of understanding and fueled by fear. Fear of how the transgender person's transition will affect other aspects of their shared life together, and how society will judge everyone involved. Transition placed at risk my job, my extended family, my relationship with my children, and even the 30-plus year marriage that had already weathered a lifetime of challenges. Those around me didn't understand. I was challenged for not having said anything before. But how can you talk about something you didn't know existed and didn't have the language for and had never been exposed to? The very idea of being transgender was not a part of my suburban Minneapolis childhood of the 70s and 80s. It wasn't part of the life I built for myself or the path I found through that life. Each time I came out to people, I was greeted with this confusion and fear. Conversely, each time I was able to walk through the world as my true feminine self, I felt joy. I was able to trust my reactions. I was able to interact without that algorithm that governed my life for so many years. And I connected to people. I developed deep, actual relationships built on understanding and honesty. As I came out to people, I sought those honest relationships. I sought to live without the dystopian lens. I sought to resolve a lifetime of conflict. People I came out to felt concern and fear. I wondered what had happened, and I came to understand that the concern and fear is based on societal disapproval surrounding the cultural expectations about gender. I was violating what our culture said was allowed because of the gender I had been assigned at birth, which was itself based on a generalization. In essence, a guess. The doctor had assigned my gender at birth based on the law of averages, and then society was unable to adapt when that guess was wrong. Transgender people who are unable to live honestly as they see themselves will often go to great strides in order to resolve that discord. There are countless stories of transgender people taking great steps in order to resolve those disparate voices. They push themselves harder to fix themselves, to be a better man or a better woman, whatever that means in the context of their lives. Yet, far too many others lose hope and attempt or complete suicide. We cannot force others to be who we want them to be. When people tell us who they are, we push back on them in favor of the stories we want for them or wish for them, for ourselves. We have to let those stories go in favor of welcoming the adventure of our relationships as they change and grow and transform us. Transgender identities are real. We know the truth of who we are because of our lived experience. I know the truth of who I am because of decades spent seeking myself and my voice. I'm so thankful I found myself. I'm so thankful my family and friends welcomed the adventure of our changing stories. And I hope one day transgender people still closeted will be able to find the joy I have found. Now, imagine back again. Imagine being the same child I asked you to imagine before. Imagine living a lifetime of invalidation and the struggle to find yourself. Now, imagine you're staring out at a crowd of 300 people and ask yourself, do they see me? Do they see my truth?